Craig Parry and welcome to today's lesson on the basics of underwater photography. Okay, so today I wanted to kick off. Last week I had a few technical issues with my live broadcast, but I've finally worked it out on how to do it. Bit of a learning curve, but I got there in the end. So today, because we sort of missed out on last week's episode of how I became who I am today as a photographer, I wanted to briefly go over that with you. So it all kicked off when I was about 6 years old, and I had a fascination with National Geographic and exploring, traveling. I loved all of that. So essentially it all came down to me wanting to take photos of animals underwater or adventures that I was on. And without the support of my family, my mum and dad, that wouldn't have happened. So I am so grateful for that. So to kick it off, I started off when I was 6 years old, taking photos on the Barrier Reef with a disposable underwater camera. I was lucky enough to go up there on a holiday with my parents and relatives. So I did that, and from there, I guess I had an inkling that I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. It was, I guess, a change in, looking at National Geographic magazines. I learnt from them about composition, what looks interesting, and also I still get ideas from National Geographic on subjects I want to shoot today. I look back on the old magazines and go, oh, hang on, I haven't seen this in publication recently, so I'll look at pursuing that. So there's a little tip for you. From there, school was tough for me. I found it really hard at school to sort of excel in the more academic side of things. I was a very athletic person, very creative, and all I wanted to do was get out and sort of take photos and be outside, be in the outdoors. So for anyone there struggling with school, there's other avenues you can take, and one of those is being a professional photographer. So from there, I bought myself a camera and saved up all my money. This is when I was about 16, so I was constantly saving money with my part-time job, doing school at the same time, and just progressed slowly. I wasn't any good. I didn't do photography at school. I wish I did. I looked at all the other photographers there, and I wished that was something that I did, but I just sort of learnt by myself. And I kicked off when I was around about 19, taking photos of surfing. I would go out with my friends and just muck around with them and, take photos of their weddings, if they got married, or get portraits. I just kept on trying to get out there and better myself as a photographer. From there, I opened up my gallery. That was in 2009. So I had a big sort of gap between 1997 to 2009 where I traveled the world. I did photography overseas, but it was never at a professional element. It was always just taking photos of my friends skiing or just getting out there and doing my friends' weddings for free. I did try to pursue the whole wedding career, and it was very tough for me because all I wanted to do was be in the outdoors and photograph and have my adventure style of photography sort of in the forefront. And from there, I opened up a gallery in Lennox Head, and that happened in 2009. And that was, for me, a defining moment in my career. I had my back up against the wall. I really wanted to make a career out of it. I wanted to prove to myself that I can do this. And it was a tough struggle. I won't lie. I was lucky to have the help of my mum, who would come in and look after the gallery while I was out there photographing. I was very entrenched at that time in surf photography, so I would go out there and shoot surfing for hours and hours and hours and hours, and that took up a lot of my time, and the money wasn't very good. So it was nice to have the gallery as a piece where I'd sell my art and make a bit of a passive income from that. From there, I delved into the world of natural photography, whales, all the animals, and I found a real passion for it. And I found a real passion of teaching people photography as well. I remember when I had my gallery in Lennox, I had a school group. I was probably 6 or 7 kids around the age of 9 to 13, and I took them on photo walks. And when I did that, was probably the first time I ever taught photography. And when I did that, just to see them have a great time, to get these photos, and I'd stand with them and direct them on how to take photos. And when I saw their faces, it was really rewarding, and it sort of, I guess, gave me the direction to sort of go into not only being a professional photographer, but also be an educator in photography. Because there's nothing more rewarding than teaching people what you know. And it's good for your own growth as well. So from there, I closed the Lennox Head Gallery and I started working for Discovery Channel. I used to have drones like before most people, so I'd have the digital SLR under the drone. I could film with it, and early 2012 to 2013, there wasn't really a good commercial drone out there doing film, so I used to get a lot of work overseas doing that kind of work. From there, I decided that I wanted to open up my dream location in Byron Bay. I was very passionate over that period of time that I really wanted to have a gallery and show the world my photos. So I did that. It was fantastic. I closed my gallery last year, so I had it open, for 7 years. And in that time, my career has taken off, having the opportunity to work for National Geographic in 2019, 2020, 2021, 23, and this year as well. So it's been fantastic. Working on Limitless as their key art photographer and their unit stills photographer was a dream come true. And from there it was Secret Life of the Octopus, which will be released this year. That was directed by James Cameron. That was another privilege as well. So that's it in a nutshell about me. Welcome, and I'm glad you've found some time today. If you haven't found time, this will be recorded, don't worry. But I want to talk to you about underwater photography and the gear you need to get the right shot. And I'll also go over some settings as well. So the secret is lens choice is a big thing, especially when you're starting out at underwater photography. You really need to get a wide angle lens. This is for underwater, mind you. There's a whole different ball game when you get above water. But when you're underwater, you really want that wide angle lens, like a fisheye or a zoom, which goes from 12 to 24 mil. It's a fantastic way to learn because you don't have to focus too much on composition. It's more about getting the shot, okay? From there, housings. Now, housings is super important. Let me just show you what I use. Now, this is Aquatech. So this is my Aquatech housing. On this one, you can see I've got a dome port. Now, that dome port is used for me to get split shots and those wide angle shots of, say, bigger animals, right? Now, my other housing, another Aquatech, this has a flat port. Now, this flat port is fantastic for your 16 to 35, your primes, like a 50mm prime. Fantastic sort of lens underwater. And also, it works really well above water. So when you're shooting surfing, it's nice to have a flat port, just so you can get a squeegee and get that water off, and it doesn't have any softness around the edges. The problem is sometimes with these dome ports, they will get a bit of softness around the edges just here. But that's natural to get. But there are techniques to get rid of that or reduce it anyway. Okay, maintenance is a massive thing. When you're underwater, you want to know that your water housing is not going to leak. And it's always guaranteed with all my students over the years, it's always user error. So it's really important to keep your housing clean, sand-free. Make sure that all the seals that run around the back of the housing itself and also on the ports are clean, free of hair, free of sand. And the other thing is too, make sure that you do them up properly. So you got to make sure that your housing's done up really tight. You want to make sure that your dome port's on really secure, and also the clips on the back of the housing are done up securely. And also go around and just see if your O-ring is nice and flat and squished all the way down. So from there, you jump in the water. Now when you jump in the water, I always double check my housing for any leaks, any sort of fogging that's going on. Fogging's a little indication that you've got a little bit of water in there. Now that could have been from a previous swim, or that could have been from you when you cleaned it. So just make sure that you don't have any fogging and that you don't have any leaks. I tend to just push the housing down a little bit under the water, bring it back up, have a look. It's just a bit of peace of mind for me. And this will occur throughout my whole swim as well. So always check it. All right, so we've done that. Settings. Now, most of my students, when I take them on board, shooting manual photography is very overwhelming. So what I tend to do is I tend to sort of bring them into underwater photography really slowly. All right, so I'll go in and tell them to do shutter priority first. Shutter priority is a setting on the camera which allows you to set the shutter and forget about the aperture, get the ISO on auto as well, and this will allow you just to focus on photographing. Don't you have to focus on any camera settings. I want you guys to be really comfortable underwater, okay? And that's super important because you don't want to panic and you don't want to miss a shot as well. So from there, from going to aperture priority, you want to go into manual. Manual is the ultimate setting for underwater photography. You can't trust a camera's brain underwater. So you don't want the camera to be making the decisions for you, okay? So you really want to learn how to do manual photography, and manual photography is very simple, and I brush on that on other workshops that I've done. I'm actually doing a masterclass which includes all this information on how to shoot underwater on manual, but I'll go into that later. Now, this is underwater, so it's really good to be shooting with a white balance of, say, I think it's 6500, or on your camera it's cloudy. This gives a bit of skin tone to your subject underwater, whether it's a whale or a turtle, or even growth of seaweed or any of that underwater. It gives it a little bit of color. You always want to be shooting raw. Now the white balance, because if you're shooting raw, you can change the white balance to make more magenta hit the camera. Hit the image. So the more magenta you have, the more color you'll get in the sand, in the person underwater, and the animal underwater. Okay, so make sure you shoot raw because you can change the image so much. All right, from there, above water. So above water, it depends. If it's sunny, then you'd probably want to have it on a sunny a sunny white balance. ISO, you can leave on auto, and you can also allow the aperture to be f2.8 if you want above water. When you're underwater, I didn't brush on that, when you're underwater, you want to have the aperture above 6, f6, because that reduces the amount of softness that I was talking about earlier on the edges of the dome port. Okay, so when you're above water, fine, you can just shoot f2.8, get some really creative sort of compressed shots above water of people, of the sun, of surfers. But underwater, f6.3 or above, I tend to shoot f8 most of the time. And that just allows me to get everything sort of nice and sharp all the way to the edges of my housing. Okay, now when you're shooting above water, it's really handy to have a squeegee. Okay, I spoke about that when I showed you my housings before. If you've got a squeegee, it's fantastic. I just go to Bunnings and cut one, like a shower one in half, keep it in my hand, and during my session, I'll just squeegee over every time. Every time a bit of action comes towards him above water, I'll put the squeegee across the front just to clear any drops. There used to be lots of wives' tales about putting wax and all that kind of stuff on your port, but I never really found it very successful. I'd always have drips annoying me on it. All right, so from there, what else can I talk about? There is so much to talk about. Travel. So if you want to get better at underwater photography, you can, try and find somewhere where there's crystal clear water. Maybe even try it if you've got a pool, if you've got a friend that's got a pool. It's super good to be able to have clear water to practice your underwater photography. If you go into a really dirty water, it's not inspiring, and you just can't get the results you want. I'm very picky these days about water quality, so that's a big thing. I guess that's it. What I might do is I'll leave this open for questions. If you have any questions about underwater photography, I'm happy to sort of answer you guys, and it's good to have there in the comments about underwater photography and questions that you have, because then other people can sort of look at them and the answers that I give you can reflect on them as well. In other news, wow, what can I talk about? I've got my masterclass being launched. My masterclass will be a comprehensive course on fundamentals of photography. Use everything from water photography, aerial photography, being a unit stills photographer, editing. This all will be released in end of March. I'll be giving you guys more information. I've actually added a link into the comments for you guys to click on. You can have it. You can sign up, and I can send you some information about future courses. But I'm looking forward to releasing that sometime very soon. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you guys being here and supporting me, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these. Next week, I'm going to talk about aerial photography. It'll be same time, same day, Tuesday at 10 a.m. on aerial photography. Hope you can join me. Signing out. Have a lovely day, guys. Thank you.